This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, West Alabama, Internet world. How are you doing out there? This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. I am Joe Gaither. You're watching us on Facebook, on Instagram. Well, no, you're watching us on Facebook, Twitter, and right here on YouTube, BamaCentral.com. This is the Joe Gaither Show. You can follow me at Joe Gaither6. Send me a comment, question, query, and complaint. We've got a ton to get into today because, oh my gosh, it was a huge weekend. I wasn't on yesterday because it was Martin Luther King Day. I was writing some of the news that was happening yesterday as it was happening, and we want to invite you to jump into the comment section on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube at Joe Gaither6. You can send me a comment, question, query, and complaint like my friend Everett Osmer has already done. Yay, my favorite show. I appreciate Everett sending me a message and supporting the show. You can do that as well on your favorite social media channel. We're going to get into a lot of the rumors. We're going to get into the coaching search. We're going to recap the weekend as I was in Bryant-Denny Stadium with BamaCentral.com, seeing head coach Kellen DeBoer's introductory press conference. It was a great time. It was a lot of fun to be there. It was a moment in time seeing Coach Saban on the front row. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the players that have gone into the transfer portal in the last 3 or 4 or 5 days. Some of the players who have already announced their transfer destination, i.e. Isaiah Bond. We'll compare it. We'll kind of see our thoughts on his decision to go to Texas. We'll talk about the assistant coaches that we or the University of Alabama have already hired, or some of the ones that they have missed on. And then at the end of the show, we will talk to Austin Bidwell of MizzouCentral.com because Alabama and Missouri are playing a basketball game later on this evening. So without further ado, we hope you guys are staying warm. I hope maybe you took the day off. If you didn't take the day off, if you're working from home, we appreciate you watching us. And let's get right into it. So Saturday was a great day. We were in Bryant-Denny Stadium. You read all about it on BamaCentral.com. Katie Wyndham, Blake Byler, myself. You had Will Miller in there. You had Matthew Gibson was in there, and our main man Chris Walsh was in there as well. We got to hear head coach Kellen DeBoer. He kind of laid out his mission up in the what was that? The North Zone? Yeah, the North Zone. North. Just make sure. Yeah. And then we broke off into into 2 different breakout rooms, the recruiting room and the media room, and Kellen DeBoer met with the media, as did Greg Byrne, detailing the head coaching search over the weekend and kind of the process from Greg Byrne's angle, and Kellen DeBoer from his angle jumping into accepting the job. And my impressions were, he did a good job. It was nice to see Coach Saban there. Greg Byrne obviously spoke, and it was great to see that Chris Stewart did his thing. It was a good time. He did well. Look, tell me your impressions of the press conference. You're welcome to do that right there in the comment section. I wasn't necessarily.
On BamaCentral.com.
Oh man, I have that. Yeah, turn that off. I was not necessarily overly blown away by head coach Kellen DeBoer. What he had to say. Obviously, he spoke from the heart. Now, I've heard now recent leaked audio from his time dismissing his players at Washington, and some of the people, the Washington people weren't very happy with some of the way he did that. But that's just the way the coaching searches happen. Coaching searches happen so fast. Kellen DeBoer was up there on Saturday and he said, on Wednesday I woke up feeling so kind of depressed that we lost the national championship, and then Greg Byrne called me, and then Greg Byrne said, I flew into Seattle. He was up in Seattle basically the same day that Coach Saban made his announcement. So for people who were like, oh, Greg Burney was caught off guard, no, it doesn't seem like he was. It seemed like Kellen DeBoer was, if he wasn't number one choice, he was up there number one, number two choice. And so I'd like to get your impressions of basically his press conference. He talked about building men academically, athletically, intellectually. I mean, he said all the right things. Was he, he wasn't the sharpest dresser. He didn't blow you away. He didn't blow me away from the podium. But here's the deal. He's 104-12 over the course of his head coaching career. And so basically the next step is, how do you build your staff? I believe that on the field, he's going to be a great X's and O's coach for the University of Alabama. Is he going to be able to hold this roster together? That's basically the next huge question. And how he holds the roster together is building the coaching staff. And you've read about kind of the rumors that we have a coaching tracker right there at BamaCentral.com, assistant coaching tracker, who's come in. Chris Lowe's been all over reporting that at Chris Lowe ESPN. You can check him out always. Make sure you have him on alerts, or you can have at BamaCentral on alerts. But you read it. He's bringing in basically mostly the entire offensive staff from the University of Washington, except for a running backs coach. He's keeping Robert Gillespie, Alabama's running backs coach. He gets retained, so he stays on staff. He brings Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator, the same guy that Nick Saban tried to hire last year before turning to Tommy Rees, replacing Bill O'Brien. So Tommy Rees, unfortunately, gets kind of left out in the wind right here, and he's got to go find a new job. So no matter how good or bad of a job that you think he did this year, Tommy Rees has got to go find a new job, and we wish him all the best. It seems like Ty Simpson, I don't know what you make of reading the tea leaves on the Twitter machine, but Ty Simpson put out a tweet 2 days ago, yesterday, of him and Tommy Rees standing arm in arm. It didn't really have a caption, so maybe that just means he's going to stay at the university. Maybe so. Or maybe it means that he's going to follow Tommy Rees wherever he goes, because the picture was just the two of them. We'll see what happens with Ty Simpson in the coming days ahead. But yeah, you basically got the big job for Kalen DeBoer is to retain the roster. And how he does this is he brings in a great offensive staff. You look at the numbers, the way that Washington has attacked the Pac-12 over the last 2 years, and you look at his time in Indiana. Basically, he has developed a vertical passing game where he is, he's combined it the past 2 seasons with a little bit with a physical running game as well. And he brings Scott Huff, offensive line coach. So you're going to have a brand new offensive line coach. Sorry, Eric Wolford. He's going to be, looking for a new job. Scott Huff comes in from Washington. Scott Huff's been at Washington since 2017, and despite their ups and downs with Chris Peterson, they were a physical team, and then they took a little dip and before Kalen DeBoer got there, and then they got some of that physicality right back. So Scott Huff, I think, might be a guy that Alabama fans really, really enjoy revamping the Alabama offensive line. I know there was a lot of talk last offseason about the Alabama offensive line kind of reestablishing that Bama factor, and that didn't necessarily happen. I guess it did throughout several points of the season, but against Texas and then against Michigan, kind of in some of the bigger points of the year, they didn't win the line of scrimmage. So it's going to be important for Scott Huff to come in and coach this Alabama offensive line. So you keep Robert Gillespie for the running backs coach. You got Freddie Roach. You keep him along your defensive line. So you got 2 on the field coaches are holding over from the Nick Saban staff onto the Kellen DeBoer staff. So you like to see a little bit of continuity there. Maybe that quells some of the notion that Kellen DeBoer is not going to be able to, he's not from the South. He's not going to be able to recruit the South. This, that, and the other. It seems like he's doing a pretty good job building a staff where he's mixing some of the holdovers from some of the best parts of Nick Saban's staff, and maybe trying to work together to build his vision, integrating. You just have to see. There's always going to be some detractors when there was always going to be some detractors when Coach Saban announced his retirement, with whoever was going to take over. And you're just going to have to wait and see how the new staff kind of takes over. It depends on kind of the rest of these next probably 20-25 days, how the roster holds together. So that's kind of like who we know so far is coming into Tuscaloosa. So he's got like 5 more. And we want to get into obviously Kane Womack as well, the defensive coordinator, the new defensive coordinator. We'll get into him in just a little bit. So you got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on-field coaches. You got 3 more position coaches to fill. Maybe you got secondary linebackers. Womack's probably going to coach kind of in between there, and then you're probably going to have obviously a special teams coach. So you got your 10 on-field coaches. You got 3 more position coaches for him to fill. I think he's doing a pretty good job. Is basically what I want to get into. He was announced on Saturday. And this is a Tuesday. People were kind of complaining on Sunday. Oh my gosh, where's the staff? Where's the staff? And I was kind of hearing things, obviously, that the staff was coming together. Like, you got to give this man some time to talk to some people, to make some plans, to talk to the previous staff. We are this is Tuesday at 3 p.m. You're sitting here. He was introduced on Saturday at 1. You had to go through all the hoopla of, shaking hands, kissing babies, and handling the media pretty much probably to about 4. And then he got going. He had a meeting last night, basically introducing the team to Kane Womack at 6:30. Like, he is kicking it. He's hit the ground running. Give the man some time. I think, the panic that some of the people, some of the online panic that I've seen over the last, 6-7 hours, 6, 7, 12 hours is not necessarily appropriate now that he's landed on Kane Womack to land his defensive coordinator. And these two guys go back to their days in Indiana. 2019, they were offensive and defensive coordinator, leading the Indiana Hoosiers to an 8-5 season. So it's going to be A-okay in Tuscaloosa. These guys are good football coaches. Greg Byrne, trust him. He's got a good track record of hiring coaches so far. Obviously, it's a whole different ball game hiring a football coach than hiring a baseball coach and hiring a basketball coach. And you like what you've seen out of Nate Oates. You don't really know Rob Bond so far, but he's got a good track record. Look, Greg Byrne, Nick Saban, that are walking along, they kind of handled this, I think, as best they could. Nick Saban didn't want to do the whole media tour of, I'm going to be leaving next year and do the whole 1-year media, hoopla. I think that as an academic and as an athletic organization, I think that this is going pretty well from an Alabama perspective. Now, your biggest issue is retaining the talent. And everybody wants to talk about, what's going to happen with Caleb Downs? What's going to happen with Caleb Downs? Caleb Downs is kind of, I think, in a 50-50 position on if he's going to leave Alabama or not. I don't know that. I've heard rumors that last night's team meeting where they introduced Kane Womack, some of the team leaders, maybe pleaded with Caleb Downs, or maybe not pleaded with him, but encouraged him to stay with the Crimson Tide. And we'll see if that had a positive effect on him or not. You never know what's going to happen with these guys, especially when there's 20, you're coming up on a week since Nick Saban has retired. When Nick Saban announced his retirement on Wednesday, they get 30 days to go into the portal. Tomorrow is going to be Wednesday. That's 30 minus. You're going to be looking at like another 3 weeks of this, 23, 24 more days of people tampering with your talent. And Kellen DeBoer is going to have to do his best job keeping this talent and the roster together. One of the aspects of Caleb Downs' decision is Travaris Robinson. Travaris Robinson, reportedly from Chris Lowe at ESPN, interviewed with Kalen DeBoer on Sunday, and Kalen DeBoer offered him the defensive coordinator position. Reportedly, you don't know, obviously that did not work out. Travaris Robinson is staying with the University of Georgia as co-defensive coordinator with Glenn Schumann. I think the relationship with Will Muschamp at Georgia. Will Muschamp is moving into kind of an all-field advisory role at the on staff at Georgia, helping Kirby Smart out. I think that kind of encouraged. I think that what's up, C.J. Watson? Thank you so much for joining us today. I think the decision to stay in Athens is more about working again with Will Muschamp at Georgia, rather than kind of taking a chance with guys he didn't know here and a staff that he didn't know. So that does affect the defensive back room. You're seeing a lot of defensive backs go into the transfer portal already. You look at the coming and going for on BamaCentral.com. You got 24 guys have gone into the transfer portal. A lot of them obviously went into the transfer portal before the Nick Saban announcement, but since the Nick Saban announcement, you've seen Des Ricks go into the transfer portal. You've seen Amari Niblack go into the transfer portal. You've seen Sean Murphy go into the transfer portal. You keep on going. You saw, let's see, Antonio Kite, went into the transfer portal. That's 4. Isaiah Bond and Trey Amos today is 6. It makes 5 and 6. 6 guys have gone into the transfer portal since the Nick Saban's retirement announcement, and a lot of them being in the defensive back room. And you think, oh my gosh, who's going to play defensive back? You still got Damani Jackson. You still got a lot of guys. You look at the incoming 2024 class, Jalen Mbakwe. Pretty much everybody that's in the 2024 class have said that they are going to stay. So far, you've still got a lot of things that are up in the air. Anything can change on a whim. But I think Alabama, when this is all said and done, is going to shake out in a positive light. You've got a cornerback from Washington. You're gonna see, I think, maybe 3, 4, 5 guys that went to the national championship game from the Washington Huskies end up in a Crimson Tide uniform before it's all said and done. So I don't want anyone to kind of freak out from an Alabama perspective. I think you're seeing a lot of maybe opposite fan bases, maybe using the opportunity, the Nick Saban retirement, to poke fun at Alabama. And yeah, Alabama, of course, is vulnerable right now. Anytime that you lose a legend, you're vulnerable. But if you hire the right coach, and we'll see, Greg Byrne, basically your legacy depends on it. Yeah, if you hire the right coach, then it's going to work out just fine for Alabama because of the infrastructure that Nick Saban leaves behind. I think basically, if you're a quality coach, if you know what you're doing, you're going to be able to make relationships. There's no way that you got to this level without it. And Alabama is a destination jobs. People, I guess, have complained on Kellen DeBoer that, he's a job hopper. But wouldn't you go from NAIA Sioux Falls to Indiana to Fresno State, all the way to Washington to Alabama? Of course you would. If you're proving yourself at that greater rate, I think that Alabama is a destination job, and Kellen DeBoer spoke very, very highly about the job on Saturday, and we'll see if he can follow in the footsteps of the great Nick Saban. It seems like he's hiring a pretty good staff. We'll get into Kane Womack a little bit further down the line, probably tomorrow's episode after I'm able to study him a good bit. One thing, he's the son of a coach. He's his father was the defensive coordinator for Hugh Freeze for the last during his tenure at Ole Miss from 2012 to 2017. So he runs a 4-2-5, which is very similar to a lot of schemes that you've already seen Alabama run over the last handful of years. But it's going to be more attacking style, and I think it's really going to encourage and take advantage of the athleticism at the University of Alabama. It's going to be a lot of fun to kind of get to know what his schemes are and where his blitzes are coming from, and kind of what he wants to run in certain situations from a defensive standpoint. We'll have all off season to break that down. But I want to get into Isaiah Bond real quick before I turn it over to our friend and talk about the Missouri basketball game. I want to get into Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond went to Texas. Yeah, that happened on Sunday when we were at church, right in between the services. Isaiah Bond announced that he was going to Texas, and people could see that a mile away. And you got a lot of people complaining about, oh my gosh, how can you do this? Transfer portal, blah, blah, blah. It's so bad. You can't blame Isaiah Bond. You can't blame Isaiah Bond for jumping in the transfer portal, but I don't think you should be complaining about Isaiah Bond either from two standpoints. One, because Isaiah Bond, was he a great receiver? I don't really think that he qualifies as a great receiver. Obviously, he has the 4th and 31 catch that saved your life against Auburn and saved your season and kept you in the college football playoff picture. And Daniel Moore, my first thought was, oh, poor Daniel Moore. your big artistry picture, your big painting is gonna make a lot of people mad. It's gonna not sell as well. I would expect. Obviously, maybe not, but I would expect it's not gonna sell as well. But Isaiah Bonds goes in the transfer portal, and he goes to Texas. And allegedly, if you listen to certain radio programs, he's got himself a major raise. Allegedly, he was making about $100,000 here at the University of Alabama, and Texas is offering him $600,000 to come play over in Austin. And you saw the Instagram photos, or you saw the Instagram stories from the Lamborghini shop in Austin. And, dude, if you're offering me a Lamborghini, I'm probably going to end up going. And that's, you just got to ask yourself, if you're going to get that big of a raise, I think that I think that's way too hard to ignore. But from an Alabama perspective, from an on-field perspective, are you really losing a whole lot? Isaiah Bond and your 48 receptions, 668 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Sure, you led the 2023 team in receptions. What was he? Second in yards to Jermaine Burton, and second in touchdowns to Burton. But you had the 4th and 31. You had the touchdown catch, all the deep shot down the middle against Tennessee to really spark the comeback. Great, good memories. But were you a special wide receiver? People could say, oh, well, it's because he played with Jalen Milroe. Oh, Jalen Milroe, you can knock Jalen Milroe's passing ability if you want to, but his deep shots and his deep field passing ability, his efficiency was pretty daggum strong. Here's what I want to look. With deficient or people, with previous quarterbacks, with previous Alabama quarterbacks, let's look with previous Alabama quarterbacks that had kind of passing deficiencies, like say freshman Jalen Hurts. People complain about Jalen Hurts not being able to read the field, or maybe 2014 Blake Sims. With Lane Kiffin, obviously he schemed a lot of things open for Blake Sims, but Blake Sims wasn't the greatest passer in the world. He didn't make it as an NFL quarterback. He made it as, a semi-pro quarterback and did very, very well. But look, Blake Sims in 2014, he had Amari Cooper. How many receptions did Amari Cooper have? 124 receptions, 1,700 yards, and 16 touchdowns. Obviously, so Isaiah Bond, come on, you're not even in that stratosphere. Now, of course, you're comparing a little bit of Tommy Rees to Lane Kiffin there, but you've got to kind of weigh that in there. But Isaiah Bond, you're not losing Amari Cooper. Let's say it's freshman Jalen Hurts. He came in there. It was a quarterback battle, and you kind of struggled to throw the football a little bit in 2016, but he was SEC Freshman of the Year. He wasn't too bad. Freshman Jalen Hurts, he had Calvin Ridley, and Calvin Ridley put up 72 catches. That's more than your 48, Isaiah Bond, for 769 yards. That's a little more, and 7 touchdowns. Look, Isaiah Bond is a good receiver, and he's going to be, he's going to be a good player in Texas. Now he's going to have to play SEC defenses, and he's going to have Quinn Ewers, and they're going to spread the ball around. But is Isaiah Bond somebody to like really fret over? No, you let him go to Austin. You don't cry about the transfer portal. Oh no, this transfer portal is so bad. Look, the people, if the Texas oil people want to buy Isaiah Bond that bad, you let him. Now, Isaiah Bond, he said, "Oh, this was 100% a business decision, 100% because Nick Saban retired." I don't think it was. Nick Saban wasn't retiring after 4th and 31 Gravedigger when you were going to the Alabama Collective looking for a raise and you got one. I think that there's a little bit of I think that there's a little bit of Isaiah Bond was always kind of looking to see if he was going to transfer out of Alabama and see if he was going to make it, make a business decision all along. And so Isaiah Bond taking advantage of the moment, and you can't hate on it. I have no issue with it. I wish you well in Austin. I think that Steve Sarkisian is going to use you very, very well. But I don't think that the Alabama fan base and I don't think the Alabama contingent is going to miss you from an offensive perspective because I think you've got a lot of young and up-and-coming wide receivers, and you've got a great chance, it seems like, to retain Ryan Williams back into this 2024 class. Look, Bond is – obviously, you got to be you're thankful for the 4th and 31. My man TJ Watson, I feel like Bond missed on some amazing Gravedigger NIL potential by transferring. Absolutely, like you're going to go to Texas and it's going to be short-term money, and maybe you make it in the NFL. You absolutely might, and I hope that you do for your own sake. But you better. Are you going to make a memory against Oklahoma for Texas that dramatic? I highly doubt it. You basically cemented yourself as an Alabama legend. You could have look. We don't wish any injury, but like let's say that you stayed at Alabama and you had an injury, or you stayed at Alabama or something tragic. Hopefully not. Absolutely, hopefully not. But that Gravedigger moment, if you'd have stayed at Alabama, got your degree, like that could have carried you the rest of your life. And maybe you make it. At Texas, absolutely, you absolutely might. But the last two players that went to Texas, the last two wide receivers, actually, really the last. I guess you got to count Keelan Robinson as well. Keelan Robinson had a decent year special teams wise this past season, but Agiye Hall. Jaleel Billingsley, you haven't seen a whole lot of success from players going from Alabama to Texas in recent memory. Not that, we don't wish you well. We absolutely wish you well, Isaiah Bond. But you could have been a legend here at Alabama, in Alabama for the rest of your life. And so you give up on that by jumping in the transfer portal. And absolutely, we wish you well. But I want to encourage the Alabama fan base to, let him go freely, because I think that you have greater production coming up behind him in this Alabama wide receiver room going forward, as I think you have with the defensive backs as well. You see a lot of defensive backs, and hopefully you can get some of them back. I'd like for you to get Antonio Kite back from the transfer portal. We'll see if you can do that, Kellen DeBoer, and we'll see if you can get Manuel from Washington as well. Your cornerback that you have from Washington that's jumped in the transfer portal. We'll see if we can get him as well. So look, give Kellen DeBoer a little bit of time. Give him a little more time to settle his staff. He's barely been here a week. Plan to plan to be at the Alabama-Auburn basketball game, because he's going to be introduced there to the public. That's going to be the next place that you can see him. You can cheer him. Give him some more time to kind of call the staff and settle this out. Oh, that's the last thing on the Isaiah Bond thing. Look, Kellen DeBoer apparently reached out to him, and Isaiah Bond didn't return his call. Look, we do wish you well, Isaiah Bond, but goodness, is there any there's no bad blood here. There's no reason for you not to return a call, for you to say, hey, Coach DeBoer, I really like Steve Sarkisian's offense. They're offering me a huge raise. You can't match it. I understand finances are finances. Maybe I'm going to be on a better offense with Quinn Ewers. You can debate that if you want to. Just return the call and say, hey, man, roll tide, and we're gonna see you. Hopefully we see you in the SEC championship game. Hook them. No big deal there, right? That's a little, in my opinion, not so hot from Isaiah Bond's from my perspective on Isaiah Bond's transfer. Come on, return the phone call from the program that you're transferring out of, even if you're not interested in coming back to Alabama. That's A-okay. So look, CJ Watson says, yep, Gravedigger, if he finishes at Bama is legacy kind of stuff, but now he won't have that love and legacy as a Bama guy. It looks different than the Jalen transfer because it is. Bond was set to be wide receiver 1, and then some disrespect on the way out just rubs the fan base the wrong way. Yeah, CJ Watson, I think that's exactly it. And like, he could have been a hero here, and he might go to Austin and become a hero there, but how do you top a 4th and 31 moment in Texas? Like, you're going to have to like do some superstar type stuff in the Red River rivalry and take your team to the playoff, and, you know, might be a first round draft pick, and that might happen. It might happen. But it's going to be a hard moment for him to top over in Texas, and we wish him very well with that. So we'll see who Kellen DeBoer gets for the rest of his staff. It seems like he's getting a lot of his support staff in place. Ellis Ponder has kind of indicated that he is staying in Tuscaloosa. You know, Ellis Ponder is very, very instrumental to Coach Nick Saban's staff as kind of a business guy, as kind of an operations type guy, operations manager, and he does a great job, or he did a great job with Coach Saban, and I think that that's a great move for Kellen DeBoer to keep him around on the staff. Jeff Allen indicated on Twitter that he's going to stay around, the head athletic trainer. Obviously, Jeff Allen from 2007 has been in Tuscaloosa. He's the last or the first original member, the last original member from the 2007 staff right here that's still with Alabama. And so Jeff Allen, I think retaining him is a great move. You've seen him deal with $1.5 billion. You know, you've seen him deal with all kinds of injuries throughout the last 17 years, and do a great job of rehabbing the Alabama football player, and, you know, a lot of other athletes as well. And David Ballou is staying. So you see a lot of connections from this Indiana staff in 2019 with Kane Womack, with David Ballou, with Kalen DeBoer. You're seeing a lot of connections from that Indiana staff that led the Hoosiers 8-5. And so we'll see if they can put it all together here in Tuscaloosa with better resources, with the deeper pockets, with you know, a little more oomph here in Tuscaloosa. So I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on Kalen DeBoer, your thoughts on the coaching staff. You can reach me at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social media machines, on Facebook, on Twitter, on really wherever you want it to on social medias. You can find me on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon, The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. I'm going to turn it over to my friend Austin Bidwell and myself. We had a conversation earlier about this Alabama and Missouri basketball game tonight. We're going to find out. Alabama 14.5 point favorite. Can the Crimson Tide move to 4-0 in SEC play? It's going to be very, very interesting. You're going to have a game. It's at 6 o'clock right here in Coleman Coliseum, and they've just changed a lot of the seating policy. If you've got a ticket, you're going to be able to move as close to the floor as you want to at the under 16 timeout. So go sit there and then move down close to the floor, affect the ball game, help the Crimson Tide get to 4-0. I'll be there right there for BamaCentral.com. We'll have a lot of friends in there covering it. Katie Wyndham, Blake Byler, Matthew Gibson, and Will Miller, myself, will be in there for Mizzou Central as well. So Austin Bidwell and I had a conversation. Look, Missouri's 0-3, so they're looking for a win. They lost to South Carolina by like 2 points a couple days ago. So they are looking for a big win. This is my friend Austin Bidwell and I's conversation earlier about tonight's basketball game. All right, welcome back into the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral, BamaCentral.com. We've had a lot of fun already today talking about all the coaching changes. Kane Womack coming into the University of Alabama as defensive coordinator. Who's coming? Who's going? But there are some Alabama athletics tonight and it's going to be a huge night. I know everybody's freezing their butts off all across the country, so I appreciate everybody who's tuned into us today, and hopefully we will have the basketball tonight in Coleman Coliseum. To talk about it, we're going to go out to our friends with Mizzou Central. We're going to hang out with Austin Bidwell of MizzouCentral.com. You can find him at Austin from KC on the Twitter machine. Austin, what's good, man? Are you staying warm in the Midwest?
Yeah, I'm sure you guys don't get many negative 30-degree wind chill days down there in Tuscaloosa, so we're doing our best to stay warm up here. I think it's about negative 15 right now wind chill. Classes start today, full swing, so we're getting into it.
Are you braving the weather to get to class? You being a good man.
I got about a 25-minute walk in this weather, so we'll see.
Yeah. I need you to toughen up my dog because she looked at me like, Dad, what the hell, when she saw ice on the ground today. And really, honestly, doesn't even compare to what you guys are dealing with. It's a brisk, like 15, 20-degree day here in Tuscaloosa, and we're freaking out. So we need to get some of that Midwestern toughness down here in the South.
Yeah, maybe we'll show you guys some Midwestern toughness tonight.
That's a good transition right there. Missouri coming into Tuscaloosa, 0-3 in the early part of the SEC season. Had some really tough breaks, losing to South Carolina by 2. We know what it was like playing South Carolina. Last Saturday? Last Tuesday. We welcome them. Yeah, we could go today. We welcome them into Coleman Coliseum. The boys went to Mississippi State on Saturday. So Alabama 3-0, Missouri 0-3. But is that really indicative of what the Missouri Tigers have been on the hard court really this basketball season?
Unfortunately, I think that it is. I think that the Tigers, we knew from the beginning of the season that this might not be the team that we saw last year that made the March Madness run, that even won a game in March Madness. It's very obvious that maybe the talent isn't there that they had last year. I mean, it's hard to replace guys like Kobe Brown. When you're sending guys to the league, Demoy Hodge, it's hard to put that talent back on the team. And I don't think that there's been any trust lost in Dennis Gates. I think that it's clear that he's an outstanding coach. But if the Tigers can't turn around this year, it's seeming like it's just a transitional year into the future of Missouri basketball with the recruiting classes coming in next year.
Okay, well, how does this early part of the SEC season compare to last year, Dennis Gates' first year? Because didn't Dennis Gates have kind of a slow start to the SEC season last year? But basically, it was a build, and Missouri by the end of the year was a team that nobody wanted to see.
Yeah, of course, Dennis Gates really didn't. He didn't start perfect in the SEC last year, but you look at some of the wins that they picked up later in the season. One that really stands out to me was the win against Tennessee with the game-winning shot as the clock expired. That was really big momentum win for the program. And kind of going forward, I think that that's not something that's completely out of the picture yet. In terms of turning around an SEC play. I think that you start tonight, even if you maybe don't pick up a win against Alabama, if you can play a team like that strong, I think that's very indicative of what the program can be. So really going forward in the next 3 games of Bama, Florida, Texas A&M, if you can't pull 2 games out of those 3, as hard as it's going to be, it's really hard to see a team like this flipping their future around any other way.
We're talking to Austin Bidwell at MizzouCentral.com. Go follow him at Austin from KC on the Twitter machine. We're talking about Missouri's 0-3 start in the SEC season. All right, so the only common opponent between the two teams is South Carolina. Obviously, Missouri lost by 2. Alabama probably had its best defensive day last week against South Carolina, beating them by nearly 30. So things are ticking up for Alabama. Yesterday in the press conference, Coach Nadoich was complimentary. Obviously, he usually is before a game of Missouri, talking about Connor Vanover and talking about some of the better players for Missouri. What's the style we're going to see tonight? Because everybody that listens to our show knows Alabama's style is, 3 and D. We're getting up and down the floor. We're going to try to play fast and play hard defense. What's going to be really what has Missouri played like this season?
Yeah, it's really funny you asked that, because if you go back, I believe I wrote a takeaways piece in one of the recent games from Mizzou Central, and one of the main points is that they don't have an identity. They come into every game kind of just doing what works for that game. You mentioned Connor Vanover, who I think has struggled pretty immensely this season, unfortunately, and everyone was so hyped for him, only averaging 12 minutes a game, 4.5 points. And it's just hard to really find any success when a team like this doesn't have, a number one guy, because Sean East is phenomenal, but he has shown that, he doesn't necessarily isn't that number one guy. And we saw that at the end of we especially saw that at the end of the recent game against Georgia, because Missouri was going up and they had a chance to win that game in the end, and it all fell apart because everyone started to take shots like they were the guy. And you can't have 5 guys on a court at the same time in crunch time. So realistically, I haven't seen an identity from Mizzou basketball. Last year was throw up the 3, hit it efficiently, and create good offense. And they're not good at shooting threes this year. So it's really hard to create an identity around something that you're just simply not good at.
All right, so tonight it'll be Alabama and Missouri. On Tuesday night, it'll be 6 o'clock on SEC Network. You're going to be able to follow it on BamaCentral.com and on MizzouCentral.com as well for both sides of the angle. ESPN's matchup predictor has it pretty bleak for Missouri. 95% chance a win for Alabama. What's going to be a successful night for Missouri? Is it so black and white that it's wins or loss, or is it or can Missouri maybe take a win away, moral victory? Are there moral victories in SEC basketball? I don't think so, but I'll throw it to you. Is there a way? What's a win for Missouri tonight? Is it just on the scoreboard, or is there a way that, okay, Missouri took a step forward against Alabama?
Yeah, so I've actually had the privilege of watching a good amount of Alabama basketball over the last 2 years. It's a phenomenal team, especially last year. I got to see them play Missouri live in Mizzou Arena. Brandon Miller had a phenomenal game. And I think that a really big key to this is when you play a team so good and you play players like Mark Sears, you play players and a team that can defend so well with a coach like Nate Oates, who I think is maybe a top 5 coach in college basketball right now. If you're a Mizzou fan expecting to win this game, I urge you to temper your expectations for this one. We're playing maybe the best, or Mizzou is playing maybe one of the best teams in the SEC, if not the best team in the SEC, right there with Kentucky. So when you really don't have moral victories in SEC basketball, but if you keep it close with a team like Alabama, I think that shows that you really can do something in this SEC season against teams that maybe aren't as good as Alabama in the SEC. You can't expect to be the top dogs every time, but if you can hang with them, that shows that you belong. So if they can show that they belong, it's a rare, maybe moral victory in the SEC.
All right. A couple more things with Austin Bidwell, MissouriCentral.com. Dennis Gates, obviously, he's in year number 2. Very impressive to me last year for the way he kind of grabbed the reins of Missouri and kind of got things. Not a team that, like I said earlier, nobody really wanted to play them by the end of the year. How has the non-conference play and the early part of the good feelings around Dennis Gates that he built from year 1? They're not worn off. Everybody's still on the Dennis Gates train and maybe weathering this storm with him, correct? Or maybe I'm wrong.
I will say that that's absolutely at least where I'm at with Dennis Gates, and I think that I speak for a decent part of the student population, probably a very vast majority that says that nobody's giving up on Dennis Gates this year. I think that he could have a horrible year, and I don't think he would be given up on, because I think that he earned that after taking a team last year that wasn't expected to do anything and taking them to the second round of March Madness. Now, obviously, regardless of, there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people on campus who, talking about us losing, he needs to go. And you look at the recruiting class for next year, and it's absurd to think that a team that really never had pull like this in basketball is pulling in a top 5 recruiting class in the country. I think it might still be top 3 at this point for next year. So it's really hard to say that you would move on from Dennis Gates regardless of what happens in this year, especially with how great he's been previously.
All right, so this recruiting class is according to 24/7 Sports, is currently ranked number 4 in the country. You got Anna Boateng, 4-star recruit out of Arkansas, Peyton Marshall, Marcus Allen, T.O. Barrett, and Trent Burns. So a pretty full class. Nice size, 7'3", 7 foot, 6'6", 6'6". Which guy? Who are you most excited to get onto campus in Columbia?
Oh man, how are you not excited to get all of those guys into Columbia? But I mean, when you just think about the physicals that Boateng possesses, and oh my, it's hard just to not imagine what he could do. Not only in an offense that has been struggling, but also on a team that's really lacked any depth from their bigger guys. So I think that it would be absolutely phenomenal to get him on. And I think that this recruiting class is kind of where everyone's going to measure Dennis Gates, because you're bringing in the number 4 recruiting class in the country at this point. So I think that's really going to determine Missouri basketball over the last few years. So all those guys are great. Boateng really is sticking out to me. We'll see.
All right, Austin, your handle is Austin from KC. So I will have to, I got to ask you, what the heck, are you a big Chiefs fan? And what was your reaction to the playoff game? Just the weather's fascinating to me. I'm never really like, oh, I'm worried about the weather. But when it gets like this, it's fascinating. It's awesome. Well, what did you make of the Chiefs game and kind of just playing in that weather?
Funny enough, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I actually grew up a Saints fan. My dad was a Saints fan. So, yep. I grew up a Saints fan. Unfortunately, I wish I was a Chiefs fan. That'd be nice right now. It's crazy when you look at places like KC or Buffalo or all these places. You're seeing videos of these water bottles freezing over instantly. And I actually was back in KC this weekend. Went back home this weekend, so I got to experience some of those minus 30 temperatures, wind chill, and no, not fun at all, man. It's break your car down weather. So
I was asking a friend who lives in Chicago. I said he's a big time Tennessee Vols fan. I said, man, if Tennessee were playing a playoff game, a college football playoff game in Chicago, Soldier Field this weekend, would you be out there like those fans? And he said, oh, I'd bundle up, I'd be out. I said, you are insane. Oh, you're nuts.
Yeah, it got to a point where you could get Chiefs playoff tickets for $30. So I was not even Chiefs fan. I was thinking about bundling up, but now I realized it was too cold for me.
Well, let me ask you, let's get a different perspective. We've talked a lot on the program about Nick Saban's retirement and about Kalen DeBoer's hire. Obviously, you don't cover Alabama, but it's a huge national story. So what's been the Missouri perspective or your personal perspective on Nick Saban's retirement and kind of how things are going here in Tuscaloosa, hiring Kalen DeBoer? You don't have to break down Kalen DeBoer, but just kind of like, what's the feel on, oh, ding dong, the king is dead and Alabama is in transition?
I mean, for me, it's really so. Before Mizzou, I was actually a Bama fan my whole life. My family is all from Alabama.
Oh, Dad.
So Nick Saban has been just one of my. How do you not, make Nick Saban one of your icons? That's the guy, the coach in college football. And I think that him stepping down was weirdly at a great time for Alabama's program, because the hire that the AD went out and made, I think, was phenomenal. I think that if the players buy in, if the team buys in, if the fans can buy in for just long enough to give DeBoer a chance, I think that he is going to be absolutely phenomenal. And I really don't think Bama loses a step, because regardless of whether Nick Saban retires or not, he's going to be a part of Alabama football, whether anybody likes it or not.
Oh, absolutely. And we're excited to kind of see what he does in his, coach emeritus role or post-coaching role in his office in Bryant Denny Stadium. I've got a little bit of friends who say, a little bit of people who say he's left Tuscaloosa for a month. He's going to hang out in Jupiter, Florida, to let Coach DeBoer get going right here in Tuscaloosa. Let's do one more comment from you from Austin, flipping it back to Missouri. And everybody knows we're doing football. He's kind of the king. Eli Drinkwitz, great season, won the Cotton Bowl. You're working the transfer portal. You lost defensive coordinator to LSU. Okay, that's part of being an elite program. program. How, in your perspective, or what are the biggest parts of the Missouri offseason football-wise for Eli Drinkwitz as he wants to capitalize on a great season?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the things that he's done to capitalize on that great season, Missouri's transfer ranks right now are phenomenal. They are pulling in transfers left and right. Caden Green from Oklahoma, 5-star. They pulled in defensive end from Michigan State. Blanking on the name right now. I'm sorry about that. But he's brought in so many good transfers off of a winning season because, players see that winning culture. They see the STP something to prove. They see the brotherhood that he talks about. And it's hard to not want to be a part of a brotherhood that's going out there and proving every game that they're just as good as everyone else, that they can beat anyone else in the country. And he's shown that in the recruiting ranks by pulling Williams Nawari, who is a top 3 recruit in the country next year. And just, finding the ability to recruit well and recruit extremely well inside of Missouri and St. Louis and Kansas City, backing off of a winning season and the success of the hometown guy and Luther Burden. He's piggybacked that onto a great, not only transfer portal class, but recruiting class as a whole that set the team up perfectly to head into next year. Already returning a mass amount of starters on offense and a good amount of starters on defense.
Well, it's an exciting time to be a Missouri fan. You guys need to be watching it and reading it on MizzouCentral.com. Our friends at Mizzou Central doing everything that we're doing at Bama Central, just from a Missouri angle. We appreciate partnering up with them. Make sure you follow Austin Bidwell at Austin from KC as they're going to be breaking down the Alabama-Missouri basketball game tonight on SEC Network. Going to be 6 p.m. Coleman Coliseum. We're going to have a lot of fun covering it. Both sides of the ball, both sides of the floor tonight. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Austin, appreciate your time, man. Stay warm. What's your biggest cultural differences, regional differences, and negative 30 degrees? Obviously, the answer is don't go outside. But what do you do to stay warm? What do you, like you said, I got a 25-minute walk to class. What's the move to survive the walk to class?
Yeah. I'll let you know when I figure that one out. For the first time in my, 18 years of life, I had on 2 hoodies the other day. So we'll see. We'll see.
Brutal. Austin, thanks so much for your time, man. We'll keep up with you at Austin from KC and on MizzouCentral.com.
Thank you for having me. MIZ.
Yes, ZOU. That's exactly right. All right, so that's going to do it for our program today. We're going to wrap it up with Austin right there, and I'm going to get out of here going to Coleman Coliseum. So I'm excited about that. I didn't mean to wear the yellow and black for Missouri. Maybe it was a subconscious choice when I looked into the closet today. I appreciate everybody following us on the Twitter machine, on all the social medias at Joe Gaither 6. You can find us right there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, wherever you like social media at Joe Gaither 6. Make sure you follow my friend Austin. Follow him at Austin from KC on the X machine. Mizzou Central, they're getting up and rolling. They got rolling this past fall. They're going to keep it going in the spring and bring you all kinds of great Tigers coverage right there up in Columbia. We're excited about being partnered with MizzouCentral.com and CowbellCorner.com as well here at BamaCentral.com. So that, like I said, that'll do it for our show today. We're going to head out to Coleman Coliseum. We will cover Alabama and Missouri. We're going to keep up with all of the Alabama coaching rumors. Who's the defensive coordinator? Kane Womack coming into town. Sounds like you got Jeff Allen back on board and David Ballou as well. So it's going to be a great day following all kinds of Alabama coverage right here at BamaCentral.com. You can follow us at Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon. Send it to a friend. Subscribe, rate, and review the program right there. We appreciate everybody watching us. That's going to do it for another episode of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.